Hello everyone, I made 8 quilted jackets so that you didn't have to experiment. In today's episode, I'm going to tell you about the different patterns, the different vlogs, so that you can sew the right quilted jacket for you. Let's get started. Well everybody, you know the kind of this is how it started, this is where we are. It started 2 years ago with this jacket, and as I say, we've ended up with a whole rail. I started with this one and then I made this one and then I just kept going, and some of it was in a pursuit to help you all and myself find the perfect quilted jacket pattern for what you're looking for. And that's not the same on every occasion and not the same for every person, but what I want to do is help you to work out what's right for you. I have raglan sleeves, collars, no collars, neck bands, pockets, long sleeve, long cut, short cut, medium cut, pockets, no pockets, different binding, some that are made to be quilts, as in jackets that are specifically for that, some that are jackets that I've turned from other things into quilted jackets, some are pre-quilted fabric, some is quilted fabric. I've covered every aspect, and I'm wearing just this top because it is summer and I want to put them on and show you. But what I would also say to you is they are a perfect spring, summer, autumn jacket, because when we get that weather where the wind gets up and it's a bit fresh, which you can get in spring, summer and autumn, these are great. They are different from the sort of more wool based thicker coats in the winter. You can bring so much more joy at a more sort of lower cost for yourself as well. And because there's great pre-quilted fabric choices, there's something for everyone. And somebody said to me, I'm not sure I could do this because I've only got a basic sewing machine in a small space. I can tell you right now, every single one of these was created on my Dunelm memory craft that is 15 years old, 16 years old, 17 I think, that's 17 years old, on my desk that I used to work at, no walking foot, no extended table, nothing. So I promise you there is a quilted jacket out there for everyone. So let's start with where I started, and I do hope if you haven't already you pause me now and get a drink because this is going to take us a while. So this one is the how it began, if you see what I mean. And 2 years ago I decided I wanted to make a quilted jacket. Quilted jacket's been quite popular on the high street for some years now, and also in the sewing community. And I knew I wanted to make one. At that point I wasn't really buying indie patterns, and it might even be nearly 3 years ago now, and I don't know how I stumbled on this pattern. It was on Etsy, they are on Instagram, and I do think they have a website as well, and this is the All Well cardigan coat. I chose this pattern because I like the shape of it. In reality, if I did it again, there are some things I would do differently. But let's start with, I added the collar. When it began life, it looked like this. And at the time, it was pre-breast reduction, and I didn't like the way it looked on me. Now, I feel differently. But at the time, I really felt I needed it. So I self-drafted a collar, which I really like on it anyway. I also, at the time, watched a lot of YouTube videos, some great ones which I will link below, including the well-loved. She did some great ones, including self-drafting her own collars. For this one, I actually took the decision, as I had a huge amount of fat quarters that I wasn't using that I loved, to turn those into the jacket. And that's kind of what spurred me on, is because they were just sitting there and I wasn't using them. So it is one of those things, if you've got a stack up of fat quarters or scraps of fabric that you really love that you don't want to get rid of, making a quilted jacket is a great opportunity to use them. And if any of you get like used to get the So Hayley Jane boxes with the fat quartering, etc., perfect. So the first thing I did when I made this one was just turn out all the things in the colourway that I wanted. And if I get up close, you can see I've got some really gorgeous ones in here, and I just laid them together to create this. I bound it all the way around there. The inside is a duvet cover that I bought reduced in TK Maxx years and years ago because it had a black mark on it. And because this was my first exploit, I didn't finish the inside other than to overlock them. And when I first put it on, it really stuck out at the back, which it doesn't do anymore, and I will put some video in. So what I did when I originally made it was I didn't like that, so I actually took a whole chunk out the back, which you can't tell when you look at it like that, unless you know, and on the inside all you can see is that. I put wadding inside, like proper quilting wadding, because at the time, again, that's all I knew. It is a grown-on sleeve, and my biggest regret, I think, is that I'm not sure if I would do this length, get off there, this length sleeve again, because it is short. It's meant to be, so it is really great for the summer when you need a little throw on, like in a cooler evening, but I'm not sure if I love that length again. So this is how it began, and it's a lovely pattern. I did hack it quite a bit. I will obviously link all patterns below. So then there was about a year or so hiatus before the next one came. By the way, quite a cropped style, that one. And then the lovely Liz of the Baker That Sews showed the Dunelm quilted cover that I've been looking at too, and she'd bitten the bullet and turned it into a quilted jacket. Well, that was the push I needed before the quilted jacket sold out, the quilt sold out. So I actually made mine out of one, and it's one, I think it's a single or double. You can find them on places like Vinted. I found one before on Vinted. So I had in my stash by this point the Hovea by Neilson. Now it comes in 3 lengths, so that will be coming up down here. There's a crop, medium and longer length. This was the medium length, and there is various options, including like a tie front and things like that. I went for the neckband with the pocket, which by the way, gorgeous depth of pocket. Oh look, I've got a pen in there and you couldn't even tell. And I took this away recently when we went to Wales in June, and on the beach when that wind was blowing, it was like bit fresh. Very happy with this. I did do the sleeve so that I can have it long, but in the evening we were sat out in a pub garden because it was the only seats they had left for a meal. How happy was I to put this on, but I just turned it up so I didn't get my food on the calves, and because of the other side it still looks great. Now if you're going to buy an existing quilt, now I bought this new so it wasn't second hand, you can get these, as I say, I've seen them on Vinted. I used the fact that they'd already quilted it, so the front and back was pre-done, so it was just a case of cutting the pieces. Same with the neckband, I just cut that as one continuous piece, and to edge the bottom I unpicked the binding from around the edge of the quilt and then just reapplied it, and that binding matches perfectly with the inside. So when it's like that, I did this, this already existed, so I cut the edge of the neckband with that already existing along the edge because then I didn't have to stitch that on, which also reduced bulk because I didn't have to fold it over, so that was already there, so I just stitched that down. And then began my life of hand stitching. I took more of the binding that I unpicked and I hand stitched it all the way up, all the way along the sleeve to the end, and then around the arm, tucking it in to a gap I left in that there. Now the only place I didn't do was the shoulder, which I overlocked, and I could do it if there was any left, but I'd actually run out of the yellow by that point, and it's the least seen part. Oh, and there's, what's that? Oh, and this back seam, which was an accident. I cut the back on a separate rather than on the fold, and I wanted to show you that. I'm sure I could make some more yellow and stitch it on, but it's a good reminder that even something that I love so very much does include a mistake that no one would know if I hadn't told you. Now, if you do sew the back very closely, you can just see I think it's just out by like a smidge, but no one looks that closely. I have worn this so much. As I say, with all of them, I will put videos in. I like the length. I like this shape. I love these pockets. I love the colour. Everything about this is tick, 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 tick. So when I'm thinking about what quilted jacket works for me, as a person who is 5'2", 36" round the chest, 31 to 32" waist, depending on what day of the week it is, 40 to 41" hip, and my body torso is an average body torso, but this distance here is quite short on me. So when you're thinking how they fit on my body, I might put a little thing in there for you. That will also help you to decide. So this comes to me, let me just stand up on the stool. It comes below my waist, like down to like mid-thigh, I would say. Yeah, mid-thigh. And it's just perfect because the wind can't get up the back. I'm a little bit stuck sitting here in it now, but I just love the colours. So if you're thinking, oh, I wish I could make one of these, first of all, if you're anywhere where you can shop with Dunelm, have a look. Secondly, start searching places like eBay Vinted. It's described as a rainbow quilt or bedspread. If not, use Google Lens Search. If you find one, even if it's out of stock, and ask Google to search that image, it will try and find them. But I am sure there will be others, and if not, if you're elsewhere in the world, there will be other ones. So this was pre-purchased. So the whole quilt was £22, and I didn't quite use the whole amount because I've got enough left to make a bag. So that is a gorgeous quilted jacket for, let's say, I'll call it £22 because of the threads, and you can't buy that for that. And actually, when I was away recently, I saw this lovely quilted jacket in this gorgeous farm shop. It was £155. So I'm not saying it wasn't worth £155, but just think how many of those I could make doing it myself. And this is one of those occasions where actually I do think the sewing does get you something for less than buying it. It's not always true, but with quilted jackets, I think it is true. So, quite swiftly after, I then made my next Hovea, and this was the more cropped one. So you can see the pocket isn't as deep. It was still deep, but not as deep. This time I did quilt the fabric myself, and this was gorgeous fabric from Legend Textiles. It is a Japanese foil cotton. There's actually like little gold bits on it. And although I love the pattern, this blue was very directional. So I actually cut it all up and sewed it together. So if I get it close, you can see there's lots of pieces. I didn't do that on the arms, so you can see the direction there, but I did it particularly on the back and the sides just to break it up. Once I'd sewed the pieces back together, so what I do is cut all the pieces up and sew them in strips, making them just slightly bigger than the pattern pieces, and then stitch the pieces together, because I don't make a whole quilt, because actually I make mini quilts for the pattern pieces. Now on this one, I wanted something that would last me from the cooler spring months, so I actually used inside, no wadding, I used sweatshirt fabric, and on the body I turned it so that the brushed fabric was facing out, and on the sleeves I turned it so that the smooth was facing out, because what you don't want on a sleeve is it hard to get your arm in, or it pulling the fabric up as you push your arm in. But on the body I wanted that snuggliness, and I quilted the fabric on to the sweatshirting. So I joined the pieces of fabric together and then quilted them onto the sweatshirting. It's got a nice weight to it. That means it's not too thick, but it's snuggly, because if you think it's like wearing a sweatshirt with an extra layer. For the neckband, I didn't do that. I just used the double over fabric because I didn't want that as ridiculously thick. For the neckband on the inside, I finished it with bias binding. I didn't want to turn it over and create bulk. And the inside of the body, I didn't put binding on. I have left it raw to show you, so you can see, because it's a lot of layers from my machine there, but I probably will overlock that. I'll trim it down. No, I won't. I'll overlock it and let the overlocker trim it. And if my overlocker doesn't like it because it's too thick, I will trim it down and bind it. So let me pop this on. Really happy with this one. Sleeves, strangely compared to that one, bit too long. Not sure what happened there, but do you know what? I really like the pink and the blue. It breaks it up because it's quite a busy pattern. And it was so busy, I even added extra detail down the sleeves. Bought this gorgeous ribbon from a fabric shop, and I'm pleased I did, because it was already busy, but I only did it from the drop shoulder down. And the Hovea jacket has a drop shoulder, and I really like the way, because it's not quite so stiff, this sort of curves and sits up. If you think the other one sits out like that, this one, because it's a bit lighter, curves and sits up, and I like that variation. So here we go, look, that's where this one ends. So this one ends at my hip, like my hip bones there, and the other one was about that much further down. And you can see there, and I pre-bound the pocket before stitching it in, because then the ends were hidden as well. So now we've done 3, 2 Hoveas and 1 all-well coat cardigan. So obviously any sane person would go, I've got 3 quilted jackets, I think that will do. Not me. I was then really enjoying the different kinds. So from completely quilting from scratch with the full wadding and everything, to pre-buying, I was on a roll. I'd already bought in previous years when I'd been in charity shops, like some quilted pillowcase covers, things like that. So I knew in my stash I had some things I could play with. So then I was like, okay, let's see what other patterns are out there. And I had a good look, and if you haven't seen one, in a good few years ago, I think it was like season 8 of the Great British Sewing Bee, one of the challenges was to make a quilted jacket. Well, you can get that pattern for free from the publishers of the book. Obviously you don't get instructions, but if you've made a quilted jacket by this point, or any kind of jacket, you know how it goes together. So I found that and had that printed. Then I rummaged through my patterns and I found I got the Jackie O jacket. Now it's not designed to be quilted, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And then of course I stumbled on the lovely Sew Let's Sparkle with Sam and French Seams, who did the Tamarack jacket. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to do that one. And then I thought about the Ilford jacket by Friday Pattern Company. And then of course Closet Core in their crew have the parchment jacket. So next we'll do, of those ones, the Sewing Bee one. This was made in a quilt that my friend found for me for £3.50 at a boot fair. It was a Marks and Spencer's quilt in amazing condition. It went in the washing machine, went straight out in the sun, but it's super soft. It's the same front, inside and out, and I cut out the Sewing Bee pattern. Now I couldn't get pattern sizing, so I measured and made a decision, and I will put the details down below of what I made. Now I have purposely left this inside partly finished. I'll move over so you can see me in it. So this is how I do, I've come to like this flat stitching. Now you can stitch it up, but I quite like, so this is some bias tape I made myself with my bias binding machine. If you haven't seen it, I've got a whole vlog on that. And I pin it either side over the seam, and I'll chop the seam down if it's too bulky. Now really interesting, this is the only quilted jacket with a bust dart, and I was a bit like, ooh, but it's fine. and I pin it, and I pin right up and all the way up to the sleeve. So this is one continuous line from here all the way up, but I leave a gap where the arm cycle is here, so I can thread the ends of the binding for the arm cycle in there. And then I pin a little bit at the top of the sleeve, and again that will go underneath the arm cycle, this one. I was really cunning about how I cut this out, because I mostly was able to use the existing binding, including this bit that was at the bottom of the quilt. So apart from the neckline, I didn't have to do that, and even on the bottom of the sleeves I managed to cut that piece out in exactly the right place on the quilt as well. So if you're clever, you can really reduce your need to do binding. Now, thoughts on this one. It's a bit more of a cropped one, but quite a nice crop. Now, I'm scared to put this on because of the pins, but I really like putting this one on. So this one comes above the hip. So this hits sort of where my natural waist is. Now, if I've still got that turned to me, I have. So it hits sort of just below, actually just on natural waist. I ended up wearing this to work one day because it felt really smart over something. And grey, for any of you who are existing followers will know, grey is not a colour I would normally choose. It's like a lovely bright crisp grey though, and it's worked really well with a lot of my colourful clothes. It's a nice shape, it's a nice length. I didn't do any pockets or anything. I wanted to keep it really clean and really simple. It doesn't need a fastening, it hangs really well. You'll see that in the videos. And it was a lovely straightforward sew. I'm really pleased I did it in this because it's not too thick. Would I make this one again? Yes. I'm already planning to make one with a completely different colour range of fat quarters and pieces I've got. I absolutely surprised myself by how much I liked this one. It doesn't have a collar option, but it hangs really well, and it hangs slightly lower at the back than the front. Can you see the way it scoops down at the back? Look there, whoop, which is not something I've been a big fan of before, but this is a nicely drafted pattern. And obviously for me, because I've got an average torso length, it works brilliantly. Right, here we go. I made this one with a vintage St Michael's, which is what Marks and Spencer's used to be called, vintage St Michael's sheet with quilted pillow covers for the inside. So there is nothing else between them. So I cut the pattern piece out in the quilted pillowcase, the fabric slightly larger, quilted them together and then trimmed it to size. But for the sleeves, because I'd run out of having enough to do both sleeves in that, because they were cushion covers I'd bought in a charity shop, I did the sleeve in some white sweatshirting, and actually it reduced the bulk a bit, because in a sleeve it's kind of around here, you don't want the bulk. So I was really pleased with that decision. My own bias binding again for my bias binding maker, and this was another vintage sheet that I turned into bias binding, and I have no idea how old this cushion cover was, but it looks pretty well loved. Beautifully clean, smells beautiful, but quite faded. So let's pop this on. I ummed and ahed about the binding, but actually I really like the yellow against the lilac. Overall, so this is another waist height one. This is great for wearing with like a high waist pair of jeans, something like that. Nice sleeve length, but I'll tell you a bit more about that now. So I love this. I realised I could probably not make a dress in this, it would swamp me too much, but as a jacket, I love it. I didn't think I would like something like this, but I do. This is the Jackie O pattern, which is kicking around in charity shops, people's stashes, swap tables everywhere, because it was a free magazine one. It was really popular at the time. But warning, you can't just sew it as it is. First of all, it is not a good true to size. I had to size up several sizes because I'd made a toile before and it was way too small. So I knew I needed to size up, and I read some more about it, and I sized it, as I say, 2 more sizes. And I didn't make the sleeves until I'd basted, that's right Mary, I basted the front and back together. And then I realised how tight the armhole was. Oh my goodness. Thank goodness I basted it, because I had to get my curvy ruler out, recut the armhole, and then look at the arm piece that was going in, because even just a single fabric jacket, that would have been no good. I'm just moving over so you can see the videos. But with a bit of quilting, that would have been impossible. But with those changes, and lengthen the sleeve, because the sleeve is meant to be like a Chanel jacket, like here. But on me, even with the lengthening, it's still down here. And you can see I sort of tapered it out a bit because I wanted that sort of more vintagey. And I'd already learnt from the first jacket, not a fan of, I don't know what that's called up there, 3/4. It's not, I would say this is bracelet length. It was more at 3/4. As I said, I'm denied about the binding, but I'm really happy to do that because it does play to the yellow inside. I probably could wear this inside out apart from one part, and I'll tell you about that in a second. Well, you should spot it actually. Firstly, inside out, the white of the sleeves. Oh, I don't know, it looks like you're wearing a waistcoat with a jacket. I went to do these armholes like I'd done the other ones with the flat binding like here, and it didn't want to do it. And then when I went to do it with the like sort of 3D where you fold it over, it was pinching too much. So I'm just having a pause and a think about what I'm going to do. Worst case, I might overlook them. Can I say, now I've got this pattern right, I feel like I could make a waistcoat with this one, and it doesn't stick out at the back. It is the one thing to watch out for when you're making quilted jackets, is that they don't do this weird sticky out thing at the back, because they're quite stiff. If it flares out too much at the bottom, you could get that sticky outness, do technical terms, sticky outness. And this doesn't. So I'm in love with and I think the fabric makes this. But would I make this again? Yes, with my adjustments. Might even make it in some different kind of jacket. So it is a win, but it is a pattern you'll have to work out. It's not what I would call a straight out of the packet. And it surprised me once I got it right. Right, let's do Ilford jacket. Now, I'm not the only person that's turned an Ilford jacket into a quilted coat. If you search for Ilford jackets, I think the Friday Pattern Company even have a blog post about turning an Ilford jacket into a quilted jacket. So for this one, I went for the longest length quilt Ilford. I did pockets and collar. This is something different that we haven't done before. This is a quilt I bought off Vinted for £5. So let's take a moment to think. I've got an entire quilted jacket for probably a tenner because you've included the binding. And it's one of those fabrics where they've printed a quilt style look on but then quilted it. So it's, although it looks patchwork, it's not patchwork, that's the word I want. It is one continuous bit of fabric. It's super soft though, and a nice weight. It's not ridiculously heavy considering how much there is. When I did the collar, I bound round the collar first, and I attached it so that it's neat underneath there because I wanted it to lie like that. And then to hide the ness on the inside, I put gross grain ribbon, because it reduced bulk, so I've not got to fold the binding edges in. And also, worst case, if that got grubby around the neckline, you could easily replace that. Round the sleeve, I cut it cunningly to use the existing binding. Same for all the way, like here. This was the corner of the quilt, all the way. And up the front. So as I say, if you're cunning with the positioning of your pattern pieces, you can do it. So then I was left with how to join the inside. So I decided to try a different technique where you bind the edge before you stitch it together. So you end up with like this, which is 2 bits of binding, and you can stitch it down, but you've got 2 bits of binding on the inside. Uses a lot of bias binding, but if you've got your own bias binding machine, not such a problem. So I did that. I tell you what, I did it on the sleeve as well, and I found it quite bulky. But it's quite a poofy quilt compared to some. So on the other side, I am going to flat bind it, and then we can see the two. I don't know that I like the bind before you put it on. Sewing in the City has a lovely vlog about that, but it's really comfy, and I'm not wishing the summer away, but I am looking forward to a time when I can put this on and feel snuggly. There will be video. This comes to my knee and the pockets are in the perfect place. I like the way it fits. Now you'll notice that I haven't put any closures on any of my quilts at the moment, quilted jackets at the moment. I'm still deciding. This one I might popper them, but I'm still deciding. But this one hangs nicely when you stand up. So Ilford jacket, move that. So it hangs nicely. It's not sticking out anywhere. It's not doing an odd thing at the front. So don't necessarily feel like you need a closing when it hangs like that. So Ilford jacket as a quilted jacket, thumbs up. I really like it, and I'm really pleased that I did it, because I really feel like it's such a great, it's more of a, like, if you did it like that, it is almost like sort of denim jacket territory, isn't it? But I would like to make a crop one. How many? Well, I'm at like 10 quilted jackets now when I was saying, but a crop one would be nice too. But I do like this longer length. It's really warm, so I have to take this off now. Let's talk Closet Core Parchment jacket. And when I say let's talk, let's talk. This puppy is the only raglan sleeve of the quilted jackets that I looked at. Now there are some other lovely quilted jacket patterns, but you have to draw the line somewhere, don't you? And I'm happy to put them below. Who knows, next year I might make some more. Thing here, right, is the person I live with hasn't yet noticed that I've been hiding around the house 8 quilted jackets. We don't have a huge coat storage thing. I don't think I'm going to be able to keep all of these, so if you've got any suggestions for what I do with the rest, do let me know. So, only raglan sleeve. Now I have left the bindings completely clear so you can see that. So let's just pull this through so you can see how it looks on the inside. And I do almost like the architectural look of that. My first issue with raglan sleeves is they're quite hard to alter if you have a narrow shoulder. The only way I've found to do it is to do a smaller side at the shoulder and then grade out. The other issue is it does create a lot of seams at the shoulder. So there is a reason why I haven't finished this. I have even cut, and they do a nice slanty pocket, which I have even cut out, but I think the raglan sleeve makes too much bulk. Now let's talk what I've made this from. I picked this, which is, I've forgotten now, it's like the white stuff, I can't remember. It's a company where these are like £100, these quilts to buy. I did not buy it there. I bought it in a charity shop where it was labelled as for a dog bed because it had got some stains on it. So I bought it thinking, okay, I can wash it, and if it's got stains, I'll use it as the wadding in the middle. Decided I would wash it and hang it out on a really bright sunny day because the sun will naturally bleach some organic stains. Oh, that sounds dodgy, doesn't it? Some organic stains away. By the time I'd washed it and hung it out for a day, it smelled lovely and it looked really nice. And I really like this design, look. But, and Christine, Gemini Stitches, has made this. And I did size down because I'd read about it, but even with the sizing down, I'll move over, it's just up here. And it's a shame because in other ways it's got a nice sleeve, and I like the fact that the raglan does this part here, but it's okay at the back. Christine stuck out at the back, and I think I did make sure I sized down. I don't know, maybe it needs washing now I've made it, but I stopped because it was the one where I was like, will I get wear at this? And I would probably need to do some closure at the front. So the jury is out on this one. Of all the ones, this is not the one that I'm rushing to want to put on. I'm surprised myself by how much I like this creamy colour, but the great news is there's loads of this. It was like a king size. There's loads left, so I could always make an Ilford jacket cropped one. Not that I need another, not that I need an 11th one. So can I say, well done if you've hung in there till this point in the episode, because we're on to the 8th quilted jacket. Now this is the Tamarack by, put it on the screen because I've forgotten who it's by. I watched Sam's and the Lovely French Seams video. This is the only one that has an add-on pack with a hood and a collar that you can get, which I liked. There are pocket options, but I decided to do something very different with this one. First of all, I bought specific quilted fabric from a fabric shop. They had it on offer, so I was going to stop at 7, and then this was on offer, so this is what made the 8th happen. So I've never sewn with pre-quilted fabric before, so that was quite nice to do. But also I decided I'd make this reversible. So one side of the fabric looks like this and one side looks like this, and it's super soft. So I went about looking at different ways to make it reversible. Now some of mine would be reversible once I finish the binding, because bindings can be like a really nice contrast. And then I stumbled on a video where she used French seams on the quilted jacket to make it reversible. So I'd cut the pieces out, so on a scrap piece or two I did a test. Now luckily this quilting is not too thick and my machine has coat, so I did it exactly like you would with a French seam, with the wrong sides together, then flip through to the right. So now you have to choose what that is if it's going to be reversible, and then you stitch the French seam down so you get this lovely detail like this, and then on the other side like this. Point to note for future self, and for any of you, if you're going to do this technique, which is really nice by the way, do the sleeve when it's open before you attach the sides of the jacket. I did not, and it was really hard doing that final bit of stitching and trying to keep not getting into the sleeve. That's coming from both sides. So just do it you know, when you do it open and then attach the bits together, because I could have done the arm. So I've actually decided on the arm cycle, the armhole, I'm going to do a nice little like contrast binding, and you'll see why. Oh, I've got a sleeve through here. I like that, the way that sticks out. So I'm going to do it in a contrast. I might do it in the black, might do a green, might do an orange, but I like that. Now I use another one of my bias bindings that I've made that varies because it's a series of them together. And it comes to, at the front and the back, it's got like a cutout at the side. Cuts out, so it hangs a bit low at the back, so it covers my bum at the back and then scoops round to the front. But I've got a couple of issues with this one. Let me move my chair. I don't like the way it hangs when you've not got a closure. What's this about? This is odd. So I'm going to have to put like popper fastenings on. I did the one where you had the extra bit to overlap. You can do it so it doesn't overlap, so it's just meets. But I'd still be interested if it met, because I'm not a fan of that like that at all. Look, it's okay at the back. I'm not a fan of the length and the dip. You'll see it in the video. Let's put it on the other way. Ow. I actually really like this side. I surprised myself. I quite like this side, and I think I will put a pocket on this side. I have got the sleeve to do now, it's done in this bias binding, but it's not my favourite one. Question I've asked in all of them is, would I make this again? I don't think this is the one I'd make. I love the look of it on other people. I love the hood. Now probably I can adapt the hood to put on another one because I quite like the idea of a hood, and it's comfy. I was a little worried about the arms. It is a little tight for a jacket, because if you've got a jumper underneath, look, compared to some of the other ones, that's not jumper territory, is it? So this one is designed specifically to be quilted and has instructions for quilting, but it isn't the one I'd go for. If I had to pick one pattern that I would sew again, it would be the Hovea. If I then had to pick a second one, it would probably be the Great British Sewing Bee pattern. If I had to pick a third, it would be the Ilford jacket. But bottom of the list, it surprised me because I liked other people, would be this one, but it's just my build probably. And wow, is it this one or the Closet Core, the parchment that's bottom? Close one there. Probably need to wear that one a bit more and decide. But I loved making them all. I loved trying out all the different kinds. And let me say to you now again, I used my straightforward sewing machine foot. Obviously I used a universal needle, a slightly thicker one to make sure it could cope. When I use my overlocker, I've got a little twiddly bit on the top that will lift the foot slightly just to give it a chance to get through. And to get the fabric through, when there was a lot going on, I would roll it so it was in the arch of my sewing machine. But I can tell you now, I didn't have an extension table, no long arm, no walking foot, just on a little desk. I promise you, they're not reasons to put this off. You can do it, and it's not easy to find the quilts in charity shops. If you keep searching and you keep going back regularly, you will. Or try boot fairs and try Vinted and try Depop and eBay and Facebook Marketplace. But you only need one if you're going to buy a primo one. No one needs 8 like me. I did this for all of you lovely people. So I would love to know which is your favourite one. If you've got a favourite pattern that I haven't heard of, I'd love to hear that too. And I'll catch you again soon. Bye.